I am going to teach you how to pitch to an investor. Something at the beginning that captures the attention. And this may be the best time to use your personal story to bring somebody in. One thing to remember though is that you don't want to kind of make yourself a sad victim case, right? Like you don't want someone to want to invest because they feel sorry for you. I'll let that settle for a second. I had to learn that, and I certainly didn't go out wanting to do that. In fact, I kept the fact that I was homeless to myself for the first few years when I was going out to people because I did not want them to feel sad for me. Because I did talk to a couple of people and tell them that, and there was just so much pity that I didn't think was like a good way to start a relationship, no matter how much I needed their capital. So, but in this introduction, what you're doing is laying this foundation of why am I interesting? Why should you stop the scroll, right? Why should you stop and pay attention to what I have to say, and immediately explain to them why the company that you have you're the perfect person to steward that company. Does not need to be long-winded. In fact, it's better if it's not. Mark Cuban, who I have a joint venture with, he often says that the longer the backstory, the worse the deal, right? The worse the company. I don't agree with that necessarily, but it is a good thing to remember that you want to get to the company itself, the value of the company as fast as you can. So then you're going to say what the problem is. Let's say you're doing a pitch deck, a PDF in Canva or some other way, and you have these different slides. The next slide is going to be what is the problem? Remember back in school we did the hypothesis, the problem, the solution. That's exactly what you're doing here. What is the problem that your company is solving or will solve or aims to solve? And lay that out, be very clear about it. I wouldn't put a ton of words and text on each slide. It's important that this presentation is something that makes somebody want to lean in and learn more. It cannot be just I get this all the time where people just have so many words on one page that it's like you could have just sent this as an email or you could have sent this as a business proposal. This deck is supposed to be like a teaser. It's supposed to be compelling and intriguing, and it's supposed to draw you in. So what I would do is look up examples of different decks and especially examples of ones that have worked. Many places you can go there, go to look those up, and they'll have like, Airbnb has their Series A or Series B sample of their deck, for instance, and then there's plenty that are earlier stage. So then the next slide or the next section or next part of what you're saying to somebody, you're going to go to the solution and then the value proposition of what your company does. So you want to explain what the problem is and then immediately offer a solution to it and what you're doing. And then, again, so an example of this could be, let me do this off the top of the dome. You could say that you know the majority of smokers have been smoking since, I'm just making this up completely. The majority of smokers have been smoking since they were 13 and they're addicted. And many of them pass away at an early stage. And we know the dangers of smoking. That's an okay kind of, it's a great, problem to solve. And it's an okay way of saying it. I'm just kind of throwing it off the dome. Then the next page is the solution. um, Smoke No More is a groundbreaking new company that, and I mean that's a little corny, but you know what I mean. Smoke No More is a groundbreaking new company that uses AI and the blockchain. I'm just making stuff up to um, to eradicate the addictive qualities. Dot dot dot, or even better, just like Duolingo teaches you day by day over the series of months to learn a new language. Our AI and our app helps reprogram the mind of a smoker so that they could add 10 years to their life on average. That's much better than the one I said before. Something like that. If somebody brought that to me and I saw those first three slides of who you are, maybe you have a parent that was affected by smoking, maybe you were affected by smoking. This is a problem, maybe some numbers on that problem that I did not know. I didn't know that 17 million people in the US still smoke. I'm just making that up too. And then boom, this is a solution. It's like Duolingo, but for smokers. Oh my goodness, somebody do that, by the way. And that's where you want to go next. Now you want to go to the market opportunity. You want to go right into how many people that you think can be reached. You want to, and this is where I get really glazy eyes in a deck, but personally, this is not for every investor. Explain to me how you know these numbers. Is it just something that you're projecting, you're making up? I don't, when I see a TAM, which is total addressable market, when I see a TAM page, a slide, and it says, if we just get 1% of the $15 billion market, then da 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 da. Yeah, I mean, anybody can say that. So I would just use sources. I would be very careful with what you're saying there, but you could say, it is a known fact that X number of people are smokers in the United States and across the world. These are the numbers. And if we start in the United States, which is what we want to do, then you have this total addressable market. What I think is even more compelling when I see it and when I present this myself is yes, this is the TAM, but where we're starting actually is with, say, teachers, because teachers set such an example. We're starting with teachers because we know a way to reach teachers, and there are 4 million of them in the country. And of those 4 million, 10% smoke, and they have to go on smoke breaks, and dot, dot, dot. That's where that addressable market and the market opportunity gets interesting to me. What most people do is, and this is like because of advice from investors mostly, what they usually do is they try to say, what is the biggest this could be? And if this happened, it would be great. If you think about my fund, I said I'm going to invest in 100 companies by 2020. In 2014, I said that because I wanted the moonshot idea. But I also knew exactly who I was going to go to first, who number one would be. So so what most people do is they just leave it at, this is the biggest thing in the world. You're going to make billions of dollars. You'd be a fool not to invest because it's such a big TAM, right? What I would love to see is show me the TAM, but also show me where are you starting. Some people call it the beachhead. Like where exactly are you starting, and what niche or small group are you starting with that you have some way to get in with them, that is, it sets you apart and it makes you special, and you're like, I can point to this and tell you right now that we're able to do this. That is more compelling to me than saying, oh, well, we're going to make billions of dollars and just you wait, you want to talk a little bit about your business model if you have one. Hopefully you have one, even if it's very, very vague or simple. And that could just be as simple as we have a membership, or the app costs this amount to download, or they're in-app purchases, or we have a freemium model, meaning that at first you can get a free account and you can get certain limited features. And then when you want to upgrade, or in order to, you can send out 3 emails, but if for your fourth email, you have to upgrade. Different ways that freemium works, which I think is really a great model. And this is what we're doing. If you don't already have that, let me say, there are different stages where you go to an investor, if you're ready. If you don't already have a business model, I don't think you should go to an investor. You might go to an angel investor. You might do a friends and family round if you have that ability. Some of you will, if you don't have a business model at all. But it's going to be really tough if you don't, and you go to investors, unless you've already had a successful exit, a successful track record, and you can kind of speak to that. You're going to talk about any traction and milestones that you may have. Again, if you're starting from scratch, from total nothingness, and this is more of an idea, you don't necessarily want to go straight to venture capitalists. There's an asterisk next to that. But what you want to do is, if you're talking to angel investors or someone who is really interested, you want to give them any traction you have. And that can be press. That can be like, we have attention. That can be, when we did our market research, we had 100 people do a survey, and this is what we found. This is the data that we found. It could be that we have a waiting list. That's even better. It can be that we have a waiting list where people have put their credit card down and they have pre-ordered. That's even better. The more you can show, the better. And if you just have straight up sales, of whatever you're doing, that's awesome too. A mistake I know people make, and they make this with me all the time, is they try to apologize for their traction before I've had a chance to have my opinion formed about it. So they'll say, literally, we'll say, "Oh, we've only done 20,000." There's a video actually on YouTube where someone says we've only done a few thousand, and I'm like, that don't do that. You don't know what I think is impressive. You don't know what the investor thinks is impressive. So if you put yourself out of the game, what's left for anybody else to do? You champion yourself. By the same token, you don't have to come in there and lie and say we've done millions, or go in there and say, yeah, we did 10,000 last year and we're killing it, we have no competition. Just find a happy balance where you just state the truth. So far we have had $4,000 in revenue to date. It has been over an 8-month period, and this is how we made it. When we get to the point where you're going to add projections, meaning this is year one, we believe in year two, we'll 2x, and year three, we're going to do $1 billion. Be very, very careful. Because just like with the total addressable market, it really, really gets dicey in the projections section for most decks that I see. Most, like 80% of projections, are just projections. They're just fabrications. They're a fantasy world, and they do not have anything to do with what's really going on. They're meant to, I believe, impress and fool someone, or to get them really excited. Again, early stage investors, early stage investors who have done this at all are used to things being early stage, things not being figured out all the way, things not being as lucrative at first, and things not being profitable for years, right? It's more about the authenticity and the planning and the strategy and the way you think about something, the thoughtful, clever, creative way you are looking to tackle something. And let me be clear, an idea is a dime a dozen. So when you write a projection or based on an idea that you have with no traction, it gets dangerous. I would add more traction. I would get more traction. I would not go out until I had more traction, even if it was small, even if it were, we have this, 200-person mailing list, and to get each person, they have to go through these hurdles, and they have to care this much. Then you're going to talk about your go-to-market strategy, which is basically like, how will you debut to the world? How will you find customers? When we were talking about the smoking and the teachers, right? I said find your niche. Um, where do you start, and how do you go from the idea to the execution to actual? Okay, we're converting customers here, even in pilot, even if it's discounted or pilot. Then you want to talk about your team, and I just every I think about all of these different things that I've seen. You want to talk about your team and your true team. Put a picture of yourself, put your title, put a picture of anyone else who's a co-founder. Highly recommend having a co-founder, by the way. Um, if you put a picture of someone who's been at L'Oreal, or someone who's been at Cisco, or someone who's been at AT&T for 30 years, and you put them on your deck in the team section because they had a phone call with you about your company, it's not exactly impressive. It's not exactly the same thing. So, yes, you can have a section that says these are our advisors, but let me be very clear. This is super important. If you have a list of advisors that are supposed to be impressive, and you put them on the deck, in the deck for that purpose, the first thing an investor who is savvy is going to ask you is, which one of these advisors has invested? Who's on the cap table of these people you have their face listed? I'm an advisor in a company that I haven't, I mean, several companies. I'm an advisor in several companies that I have not yet invested in for one reason or another. Maybe didn't have the capital to invest at that time, or maybe doesn't fit into our thesis, or maybe it's just something I'm waiting to have I've had multiple investments where I was an advisor for 6 months and then became an investor. And I believe that that is a solid question to ask if someone else asked that question. Wait a second, Arlen's on your list here. That's awesome. What's the relationship there? Are they invested? If they think it's such a great idea and they let you put their face there, are they invested? And if they're not, why not? It's not to say that it changes everything. It just means what's the good answer? What's the answer? My answer is an answer, right? I have an answer. Oh, I tend to advise for a few months before I invest, or I don't have the capital to invest in the last round that they had, but I am planning to invest in the next round. There's different things, but if I see a list of 10 people and it's just a great headshot, business headshot, I'm gonna think, yeah, they talked to them for like, a few minutes and they said, yeah, you can put my name there. That's fluff. But by the same token, if you have a list of 5, 10 people who are like really, really in the wheelhouse of what you're doing, especially if it's deep tech or something that's going to be very difficult for anybody else to try to replicate. And you have these people who are like, I want in, I would work for this team if they could afford me. I like it that much. I'm not necessarily someone in a position to invest, but I'm giving them my time. We meet every week and I help them with this and I gave them this number and I get them this customer. That's an advisor. And that's when you can really add them to your deck. And then you want to talk a little bit about the use of funds. You're raising X amount, you might put this in the deck. We're raising 500,000. We're going to use 30% of it for operations, 20% for marketing, 50% for expansion. You know, you want to have a pie chart, or you want to have a little bit of a bullet list there so people know just offhand what you're getting into or what they're getting into, and that you've thought about it, that it's top of mind for you. Because a lot of times, believe it or not, people will go out and raise money and they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know what they're going to do with the money. They just know, oh, this other company raised a bunch, or this other company did this, or my friends do it, or I've read about it, but they don't know. This happens more often than not, actually, when I ask someone, really, what are you using this for? And then by the same token, if you have that pie chart and it says 30% for operations and this and that, anybody can come up with those numbers. What is the nitty gritty? You don't necessarily have to have that in the deck because, again, this is a teaser to lean in if I'm interested, but you need to know those numbers behind the scenes so that if you're asked, you can answer. And remember, when you're presenting or when you are sending off these decks alone and they're presenting for you, always assume that somebody is going to check you. Always assume that no one's going to just take you for your word on everything. It's just the way this business works, and it's okay. It shouldn't be taken personally. Except if they say, did you really go to that school, which is offensive, which happens. But no, if you say we're raising 500,000, be prepared to defend that. Why do you need 500,000? What are we talking here? Teach them. You're the expert, or you're becoming the expert in your own company. Teach them. And then you're going to talk about what your vision is for the future. That can or cannot, may or may not include an exit strategy. That really depends on your strategy. What do you want this to look like? And that's when you can actually have that more of a moonshot, if we go there. I would encourage you not to go ham here. I would encourage you not to then say, because you probably have some people who are interested, this is where you might lose them, is I believe that, if we do this in the next 6 months, then next year we're going to expand to this. And then we're going to go have, butterflies that can carry houses. And then we're going to put jetpacks on those butterflies. And then we're going to send those butterflies to the moon. That's what ends up happening, is that you've sold me on something, you've sold the investor on something. It's like, interesting, I want to learn more. And then they see this vision of like everything. What a or one for one, it is really difficult to predict the future. It's great to create the future, but it's really difficult to predict it. Think back to a year ago, what you thought something might have, been like, and how much it's changed in a year. Just think of one thing. It changes, it evolves all the time. So for you to think, I know what the next 5 to 10 years of this company looks like, is just, it's not realistic and it's not helpful. The other thing is, what we want to see as investors is a deep uh, focus and a discernment. We want to know that you're going to have more money than a lot of people have at this stage, right? You're going to have more money than maybe even the investor themselves, because you're going to collect from different people. We need to know that you're very focused on delivering and over delivering and staying the course, and that you're not distracted by multiple things. Coming from someone who has multiple things going on, but as I've mentioned before, for years I focused on one, and that's Backstage Capital. And then I feel I earned the right to kind of go around. That's what we're looking for. Of course, we believe that you can do these things and that this company can become these things, but it doesn't need to, we don't need to have all that information up front. What I would do there is talk to your team about that, and I would talk to yourself about that, and I would dream big, and yes, allude to a bigger future. Say we have many other things that we feel could be on the horizon if we get this right, but make it about the this. And as I said before, there are several types of pitches. There are pitch decks, which again you can search for free samples of them with Canva. You can actually use Canva's AI to create a deck for you. There's also a website called beautiful.ai that makes great decks. But you don't want to just create on AI and just leave it. You want to really add to it. You may even hire someone on Fiverr or HireRunner.co, which is my company, or elsewhere. You might even hire someone or have someone internally, or even yourself, if you're good at this, create, a great deck. Another way is in person. So you might just be talking to someone. You may just have like a 1 hour or 30-minute meeting that you arrange, and you just deliver this. And it's good to kind of have a little bit of it planned. You might be in person, but you're also presenting this. So you have it up on a screen. A lot of times when you walk into a venture capitalist office, they'll have like a bullpen. They'll have a meeting room, like a conference room. A lot of times these conference rooms have all glass, and so the whole office can look in. It's interesting that that's kind of across the board, but regardless, you'll go in, they'll have some AV setup, audio visual setup, where you can plug in your laptop, or plug in some sort of uh, you know um, I can't think of the word right now, but you know what I'm talking about. Put it in the comments if you know what word I'm talking about. And then you're gonna, click it and present as you go. So especially in those moments, you want to have a couple of versions of your deck. You want to have a deck, and a pitch deck is the same thing. You want to have a version where if you just sent it off, it would explain itself. You know, you also want to have a version where it has less on the page, because you're going to be in the room and that's the one you bring with you. So that someone's not sitting there squinting, trying to read all of this stuff that you have that you sent off to another person, which itself, that version itself was edited down. There's a thing called an elevator pitch you might have heard of, which is, if you had 30 seconds on an elevator with your favorite investor, what would you say to them? Some people are really good at this and some people are not good at this. The great thing about it is that you can practice, you can write it. You can actually now go to Chat GPT, which I'm an investor of, by the way. You can actually go to Chat GPT or another, go to Google AI or wherever, and say, please write an elevator pitch for me that will explain this company. This is my company, and da 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 da. And then you can practice. You might do this not at an office, but you might do this over a meal. You might do this virtually on Zoom, again, presenting the same deck. And you might say, I will send this deck over to you after this call. So you have to decide which one of this it is, and maybe you'll do your presenting deck on the call, and you'll send the one that you can send over to them through email. Now so you may be saying, well, that's all well and good. Thank you for that information, but how the heck do I even get a meeting with an investor? Of course, I got you. I got you. So it's not the easiest thing in the world, but we're gonna do it. If you're watching this, you're still here, you're in it, you mean business, right? So you're willing to do things that other people are not willing to do. You're willing to stay in the game longer. So here's what we're going to do. There's many ways. One is you're going to just think about your own network. I meet founders all over the country, all over the world, all year long, and they're so impressive. I mean, they may be very local. They may not have networks outside of their hometown, but they're going to meetups. They're joining virtual meetups. They're going to conferences. They're going and being helpful to other people. The thing that I suggested in my other video about how to make 5 new friends, they're having salons, they're having dinners, they're having lunches, they're having barbecues. Do that. Start to do that to start to go watch that video, by the way, because that's how you can start to get more and more people who know investors in your network. So you don't have to have investors in your network if you know people who know investors, and you can be introduced. That's one way. And you may already know some people. That's what I was saying is I know some people who they're local, but they're out there. So you may even know some people. So you might even send a text to a few people and say, "Hey, I'm actually going to go out and start raising in a month or two. Is who should I talk to? Who should I give the opportunity to have a piece of my company?" Right? We're staying hungry, not thirsty. There's also cold outreach, which back when I started back in the day, when I started 10 years ago, it was almost impossible to reach somebody on a website. Now there's so many VCs who have like an open process. Backstage has from day one. You can go to backstagecapital.com. We have an application process, actually. We only invest in a very small number of the people who apply, but it's a good exercise, and it's good to answer those questions, to have those questions for other investors as well, and for yourself. And then there are online platforms. So if you're going to go to different websites of VC firms or angel investors or angel groups are great. Angel groups are awesome because you can apply to them and you can say what you do, especially if they're in an affinity group, like for women or for people of color or for SaaS products or for cloud or whatever. You can apply to several of them. They'll then, it take a few weeks to come back to you, and they may say, yeah, on August 12th, you can come and present to our group of 100 angels for 12 minutes. And then those angels will get to decide if they want to invest in you. That happens a lot. I don't think people take advantage of that enough. So there's pitch competitions for sure. Pitch competitions are amazing. I love pitch competitions. So, look those up locally, broadly, but also those angel groups. Like angel groups, they're so underrated. So I would check those out for sure. That's something that almost anybody here can do. If you have something that you're proud of, that you really feel is valuable, don't come to an angel group or any other investor with an idea. Don't come to them with just, you weren't willing to do a bunch, but you're asking somebody for $1 million. Don't do that. And then, you're gonna take everything you've learned in this video and other places, and you're going to practice. So I am kind of big on, I don't like to prep for paid speaking or any kind of speaking gig because I feel like, oh, I'm not good at I can't remember things well enough to get that right. And I want to be in the moment. So I do that very often. I'm in the moment. I'm telling my story. I know my story, right? But when you prep, when you're going out there and you're asking people for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars, think about that. What prep do you think? What do you think is reasonable to ask for that? An hour of your time? 20 hours of your time? 100 hours? 1,000 hours of your time? The answer is prep for it. The answer is there is no amount of time that's actually too much time if it is all value packed. If it means that for every 10 times you pitch, you bank, and you're going to start to know what that number is. There's some people, I know some founders, 1 and 2 times they do a pitch competition, they win it. And that's how they've sustained for the past year or two. And then they go out for bigger investments. That's brilliant. And the ones that I know who practice are the ones who win. I remember several years ago, back when I had a really bad stage fright. So it's kind of a funny story, but I was judging for Google startups, and it was in the Carolinas, and I arrived from the West Coast where I live, and I got to the room a little earlier than the start of it, and I saw this woman, and she was practicing her pitch, and it's like a 5 minute pitch competition, and she was practicing this pitch like she was about to give a TED talk. She was practicing this pitch like she was about to talk to Oprah herself. It was several times. It was moving around the stage and then coming to the front of the stage and seeing how her hand would move and seeing how her her outfit would be in the light. It was everything. It was meticulous. And I even remember saying to myself, maybe overdoing it, maybe a little too much, right? Can I tell you what? She won. She won the competition because she prepped. And not only did she prep, but she was the only one I saw do that. Now, there may have been other people who did that earlier. I don't want to throw shade at all. I'm not at all. I'm just saying that you got to if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's what they say, right? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So if you're prepared for opportunity, woo, opportunity will find you. Okay? You also want to find a confidence. When you pitch to me, which by the way, go to backstagecapital.com. I already have enough. My inbox scrolls. Okay, that's how much I get pitched. But when you pitch to me, you don't have to dance. You don't have to be exuberant. You don't have to be even super charming. There are a lot of people who are entrepreneurs who have a hard time with that interpersonal stuff. I'm very attuned to that and sensitive to that. So I don't need someone to impress me in that way. I really don't. It doesn't fool me either, right? I just want you to know what you're talking about. Um, but what I would say, and I have trouble with this too, so I'm telling myself, is to try to articulate, to try to speak clearly, to try to be your best advocate. Again, I don't care if you're introverted. I don't care if you're not looking at me, directly. I don't care about that. That's not what I'm looking for. I don't care if you have an accent of any type. If you're from the South, like I am, and you say some words like I say pen and tin and all that, I don't care. Like that's not, now that's not to say that other investors might not, might not care. But for me, I don't. What's most important though is, were they clear? Do I understand what they even pitched? Do they know what they pitched? That sort of thing, right? I want you to do this. I want you to have the confidence of the young man who, on my very first episode of a podcast I used to have called The Bootstrapped VC back in 2016, my very first episode where I took calls, called me from Canada and had the audacity to tell me with a straight face, was not kidding, that he had an app where you could essentially flex on them haters, or however you put it, where you could hire a woman to pretend to be your girlfriend and stand next to you in a nice dress. And I asked him in that moment, once I understood what he was actually saying, I said, is it called brothel without any vowels? Like, what are we talking about here? He had so much confidence. I don't know where he is today. I do know that he probably, had a hard time with the Apple saying yes to that. And hey, maybe he is super successful, and maybe that app turned into like a friendship app or a co-founder meetup app or whatever. He pivoted, but I want you to have that confidence of that young man, because I know what you're putting together is probably even better than that. Um, be very careful with the different visual aids that you use. Use them sparingly, but use them effectively. And then always, like I said earlier, you're going to be asked things. You're going to be asked to go back to that part. Can you drill down on that part? So whatever you put in the deck or whatever you say, be willing and able to double click on that, as they say. Be willing and able to go deeper. If you do not want to talk about something, or you don't know the answers to it and you're not willing to say that, do not put it in the deck. Do not put it in your presentation, because you will be asked. So think about what may be asked of you. Over time, if you do this enough times, you'll know what the main questions are. And when you know those questions, I remember there was a woman named Danielle Morrill, and she raised, I think, 6 million or something in venture years ago, maybe a decade ago. And what she did was she would have her co-founder drive. This is when she was in Silicon Valley. She would have her co-founder drive. She would have her laptop, and she'd have her deck open. And she would have already scheduled 3, 4, 5 different meetings with different investors. And she'd go into one meeting and she'd do a presentation. She'd take the questions. She would take note of what those questions are. And immediately, when she got back into the car, she would update her deck before the next meeting in order for, to address those questions, so that in the next meeting, it was an even stronger presentation. And by the time she got to the fifth meeting, there were no questions, essentially, right? Because she addressed everything. That's what you can do in a way, is every time you have a meeting, every time you have a presentation, every time, even if you get bad feedback, turn that into something. Turn that into a value proposition for yourself. So some things you want to avoid. You don't want to have too much information. We talked about that. Even too much of a dream, too much. I want people to be able to dream. Like Alfred Lin from Sequoia, a big venture capital firm, he says that he likes to be able to dream with his potential founders. That because it's on a human level, but dream in one direction. Don't take me 5 different places. Right? Don't overload me with information. Don't take me too far into jargon. That's another thing. I was filming something where I was talking to talking to founders, and one of the guys came in, and this was for like a show, and so you really have to talk to a broad audience, and he started peppering me with this jargon, these acronyms, the CPG for the DLT for it was all very specific to his industry, and in my opinion he was doing it to sound smart and to let me know that he knew what he was talking about. But it had the opposite effect for me. Yes, he sounded smart. Yes, I knew he was smart. But what it did was it alienated me and it separated me from the information. So if you make someone feel not smart, feel like they're lost, feel like they're not caught up, even if they already feel in general as a smart person, you're pushing them away. So you want to teach someone something that they didn't know when they met you. That's fun. And bring them in. Encircle them. Is that the word? Bring them in. That's how you want to do this. You don't want to, placate somebody or be, like a kiss ass. That's not what I'm saying. But it's more like, don't assume that just because somebody is a successful investor that they know about every single industry and every single thing. Mark Andreessen, I know I'm saying a lot of people's names that you may or may not care about, but Mark Andreessen is another big investor. He's blocked me on Twitter, by the way, so but he's invested in my fund. And a long time ago, I sent him a particular deal, and by a Black founder, and he said, "Well, this technology is over my head." And Mark Andreessen essentially invented the browser. He founded Netscape. So for that to be the case, for him to be able to say, "I don't get this," first of all, that's great. I think it's great that he said that because it's like human. And second of all, it kind of just proves my point of we don't know everything. And you don't want to make your potential investor feel stupid. You want to include them and kind of give them a glimpse into how it's going to be, what value they're going to get out of the relationship. It's because they're going to wait years to see if this company does well or not. If they put in 25,000 or 100,000 or 5,000, they're going to wait years to find out if they were right about you. Right about you. In the meantime, what they want is, I get to have a front row to innovation. I get to have a front row to someone who's really a really great leader or a really great founder or, someone who I can learn from. And I can teach, hopefully I can impart some wisdom myself. You want to give them a glimpse of that in your interactions with them. I do say be yourself so the people looking for you can find you. So authenticity is really important. You don't need to completely, code switch or change your whole demeanor just because you're trying to get a check. No check is worth that because you got to keep that up. Like if you lie the first time, you got to keep up that charade. you know, charade, as you say. You don't want to necessarily do all that. And then what the follow up to that is, usually you'll be the one, ball is in your court. You might want to, I'll say this. If an investor is super interested, they're going to get in touch with you. They're going to, before you leave the room, they'll probably make you an offer. But a lot of times there's a process. A lot of places will say, what we do is we take it back to committee. Angel Group might say that. We take it back to committee. Or VC might say that. We have a meeting on every Monday. So we'll take this into that meeting and then we'll do some follow up with some follow up questions. And do know there will be some follow up questions because nobody, no matter how enthusiastic they are about you, is going to hand you a significant amount of money without asking you a ton more questions. Not even the ones that are just in that call or that meeting or that email, but a lot of diligence happens after. So, the negotiation um follows, and I can make another video about that if you would like me to dive deeper into what happens after someone has either decided to do it, to write the check, or they are interested in it and they want to take you to the next level. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to do that, and I certainly will go further with that. But that's how you're pitching. You are practicing. You are getting your information concise. You're getting it clear. You are, as I say in other videos, you are simplifying the complex because you are going to be a bridge to this person, no matter what their deal is. And you only have a certain amount of time with this person, so you're going to make it worth their time and worth your time. You're not going to beg, you're not going to come across as desperate, you're not going to even think it personally to yourself that this person is your only hope. If one person is your only hope, you have a larger problem than that one person, because you have so much autonomy, you have so much that you can do. Watching this video all the way to this point, let's do it again. We have to do our code word. What's our code word? What is our code word? We're going to say yacht water. Yacht water. YACHT water. If you watched all the way here, you're going to put that in the comments. You're also going to ask me questions. And I will answer some of those in videos. But going back to what I was saying, if you are in it to win it, if you've watched this far, you're gonna have that follow-up. So let me know what else you want me to talk about when it comes to raising money from investors. If anybody has had experience with this, it is me. It is I. I have invested in 200 plus companies by women, LGBTQ plus, and BIPOC founders. I have raised more than $30 million. I have thousands of retail investors that I've worked with and hundreds of core investors who have done $10,000 to $1 million each. All over the last decade, it has been an uphill climb. It has never been easy. It is still not easy. And it's been meticulous day to day to day work. And so I have a lot of information and I want to share it with you. So ask me questions. I hope that you have a great pitch. I hope that it works out for you. Um, Try not to put yourself in a position where you're desperate for capital or where you reach out to someone and you're like, I need $200,000 by next Tuesday or we're gonna go bankrupt. You're putting that on someone else and it's not their problem. This is my brutal, honest advice. It's not their problem. They are not your parent. They are not your therapist. So what you want to do is put yourself in the position of, let me have a good quality of life here. Let me keep my day job because let me do the side hustle until it's given me some indication that it could be bigger. I'll go there. Maybe 90% of the people watching this video will never need to go out for venture funding or angel funding. 90% of people watching this video can make money, can build wealth, can have, the life they want by bootstrapping, by doing it themselves, by working with the revenue that they have. There are going to be some people who are building something that is capital intensive, that where they have other competition that is very well funded, and that they have a unique advantage, an unfair quote unquote advantage in a good way, where they need to strike where the iron is hot and they need to take advantage and give this a try. And that's what venture capital is all about. That's when you start thinking through venture capital. But if you have a course, if you have a membership, if you have a product and it is going really, really well, and maybe that means you're only making $100,000 only a year while your, counterpart in the venture world is making $1 million a year, and you want some of that, or you want $1 million in your bank account, man, that's not for free. And that money is fleeting. That money will go away. I raised $3.3 million for my last company in 2021 and 2022. All of that money is gone. It was used wisely. It was spent on something. We have a product and we are, iterating on that product. But that equity belongs to other people. I'm happy it does because I love crowd equity. But let's say I had given that all to one VC, they would be able to lord that over me. That money is gone, but the equity is forever until we sell. Think truly think through what you want your life to look like. What do you want your life to look like? Now, I could probably go on and on and on. This is about pitch competitions and pitching and, developing your pitch. So I'm not going to go too far into it, but ask me anything. Ask me anything. Happy to tell you, pick up my book. It's About Damn Time. And then pick up my book, Your First Million, or listen to the audio of either or both. And a lot of your questions will be asked from that. So if you enjoyed this video, if this video was helpful, if you had a notebook full of notes and you're making the decision about pitching or not, or you're going to use this information maybe to pitch to a vendor, a customer, a potential employee, or anything else other than money, I hope that it's helpful to you. I'm so excited to see what you do with it. Leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.